Good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking time to be at the Minnesota Bike Summit. I was asked to share a little bit about safe routes to school in Minnesota. First of all, my name is Jill Chamberlain. I work at Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Minnesota in the Center for Prevention, and I have served as the organizer for the Minnesota Safe Routes to School Network for about the past 10 years. And I'm excited to share with you both some of the opportunities and some of the challenges that we've been facing. Not surprisingly, COVID has had a tremendous impact on safe routes, but not just in its challenges, but there have been some opportunities that we've seen unfold this past year. I think first, just for those that aren't familiar with safe routes to school, I just want to give this reminder that the concept around safe routes to school is very much just this idea of where kids can and walk bike to school, we should be encouraging them to do so. And where they can't, we need to make sure that it's safe and feasible for them to do so. And so that might look like getting a sidewalk connected, improving a crossing at a certain intersection. It can also look like making sure they have access to the education that they know how to ride a bike and have the confidence to ride a bike. So it's exactly what it sounds like. The other thing I'll say about Safe Routes to School is while there is a very strong Safe Routes to School program here in Minnesota that primarily resides within the State Department of Transportation and involves funding and a couple different grant programs, Safe Routes is also something that's kind of this broader concept that is owned at all sorts of levels. It's about local initiatives that can literally sit with parents that are just trying to make it easier and better for their kids because that's something that they value. It can sit within school leadership. It can sit within the city or county. And so safe routes really can be a lot of different things. So I like to say that like it's both everywhere and also very specific into your own work. So with that, I want to pick some highlights for you. So first of all, the state Safe Routes to School program that's operated through the Minnesota Department of Transportation and relies on consistent funding for the program that includes $500,000 that's part of the general fund and something that often shows up in policy priorities to make sure that we are preserving that and sometimes increasing it. That program is doing really well. I think it's greatest challenge that it's had in this COVID time. The state Safe Routes to School coordinator, Dave Cowan's been doing a great job. The challenge he has had has been two of his colleagues from the DOT have been reassigned over to MDH to assist with COVID response. You're going to hear this recurring theme that because of all the attention and the impact that COVID has had, and also this intersection between health and transportation, several people from the transportation field have been reassigned. So with that change, it's really affected the capacity for the state program. But even with that strain on capacity, they have successfully awarded a variety of planning grants this past fall. And they also had a cycle of what are called the Boost projects, which are small grants going directly possibly to schools or communities to implement different ideas to help advance safe routes to school. Some of the projects supported in the Boost grants involved a lot of bike fleets, increase of bike parking, and also some general education material. So the slides, there's the list of all the recipients of the Boost grants. We are also really pleased that there were the diversity of geographies for the Boost grants. And in the past, they've been a little bit more metro heavy. One asset for Safe Routes to School is it is very much a statewide initiative. This coming fall, there's going to be additional Safe Routes to School funding. There will be both some infrastructure funding, planning, and also another cycle for the Boost grants, and possibly some bonding funding as well, pending some of this legislation. So a concern that's come up this last year, that distance learning, obviously kids were not going to school and we're learning from home. And then also what we found for projects that we're working on planning grants with schools is that schools had no extra capacity. They didn't even have capacity. I mean, again, we've all been living this last year. They've been doing their best to just try to make sure students had access to technology and education content. And so really, when we are trying to work with schools and talk about safe routes, it has been really challenging to have that be a top concern. So one of the things that we've been doing with the Safe Routes program is adapting resources, specifically some work that Bike MN has led with the Walk Bike Fun curriculum, getting that to be an online tool, adapting it for distance learning has been a huge, huge win and made the training more accessible. Additionally, instead of doing our traditional, bike walk to school day events in the fall and in the spring, we adapted to bike walk to school or bike walk anywhere. And that was fun because it was able to kind of highlight different possibilities within their own community. So that's something that I think has been an opportunity and a way for parents and kids to build their confidence in how they ride around communities, and parents to feel more secure in letting their kids ride around or walk around their communities. So that actually has been a strength. We've also seen updates of different resources, especially around the policy guides for safe routes. So during this I'm going to call an off season, Dave and other folks working on safe routes, we've really worked at trying to kind of update things so that we were ready, especially as we start coming back to school. One of the biggest concerns as we return to in-school learning is actually, again, it's going to come down to some parent attitudes. And one thing that's been alarming for us is because of people's confidence around COVID and vaccinated, not vaccinated, and the issue of, is it safe to put my kids on the bus? Is it safe to let them, walk or bike? That we're seeing a significant increase of parents saying that they are more likely to drive their kids to and from school. And so that has us concerned at the idea of seeing a significant increase of personal family vehicles around arrival and dismissal at schools, that increases risk of traffic incidents for the kids who are currently walking and biking. And so with some of the Safe Routes coordinators working at their respective schools, that's one thing they're trying to get ahead of, to make sure that they're thinking about some of the other tools they could use. And that might include working on remote drop-off sites, increasing walking school bus usage, or trying to think of other ways to alleviate those concerns and also not have, again, that significant increase in the car traffic. So that's something that's on our mind and that we're a bit worried about. And then this coming year, as we I don't want to say go back to normal, because I don't think that's what's going to happen, but start to kind of get into this place of rebuilding. This last year, we've completed the Safe Routes to School strategic plan, and there are 3 areas of growth that we will be pursuing collectively. One is our continued pursuit to address equity. And again, we've made significant strides in how funds are awarded to take into account an equity score, to make sure that we are addressing needs and making sure that the communities that have unique needs or different needs or greater needs, those are being addressed. And so we will continue to work on how and focus equity in how we're implementing Safe Routes to School. And then the other 2 areas that I think are particularly exciting, youth engagement. Safe Routes to School in Minnesota has done a really good job of working with elementary and middle school. But what we haven't done as well is build that skill and make sure that we are engaging with youth to identify and have them kind of leading some of this work. So the opportunity to really kind of dig in, think about how it is we could better engage, especially at the high school level, or how that may start at the middle school level and then foster up to the high school level, is all very exciting. So that's something that in the coming months we'll be learning more, listening to more youth to understand what might be the areas of interest for them. And then the last area of growth this year is around school siting. And again, this is one that it's a really dry subject. I'm not going to lie. But it has everything to do with where we're placing our schools. And we see, especially across Minnesota, when neighborhood schools that maybe are older and don't have all the capacity that the community needs. When they decide to build a new school, it is often on the edge of town or out in a space where it's not around any neighborhoods. And then you create a whole other set of transportation issues. And so one of our hope is to better understand the issues and be able to work with communities to identify possible alternatives to relocating schools, or how that other facilities or spaces could be used. So we're very much at an early learning stage for that, but that's another area. And if you're interested in any of those, I would say you could reach out to myself or to Dave Cowan. Both of us will be working together on that. So broadly, safe routes can only be as effective as it is when it is resourced. And so the fact that we have a Safe Routes to School coordinator and we have state funding, and then we also are able to access some different federal funds, that makes a huge difference. So I would just put the plug in and first acknowledge and appreciate all the work the Bike Alliance of Minnesota does in terms of advocating for Safe Routes to School funding. And then to also make sure that you just have a chance to, when you're speaking with your legislators, to share what you value, and make sure that they know that. So that is the Safe Routes summary. So thank you very much. I hope you have a great day on the Hill.